But even so, if it wants to get close to the
Muslim
400-seat
question
mark,
has
it
become
needs to
central to the Indian elections again. The 2019 Indian election campaign focused on the enemy of India from without. In 2024, it is the enemy of India from within. In 2019, the Bharatiya Janata Party Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh (BJP-RSS) was proudly stating, "Hum gus ko mariyengai," we will infiltrate and kill. In 2024, they are characterizing the Indian Muslim as a gus pathia, infiltrator. The irony is lost in the hubris. Narendra Modi claims that his main rival party, the Indian National Congress, has a Muslim bias, that it has given in the past, and intends to give in the future, if it wins, resources to Muslims from the reservations that Dr. Ambedkar, the architect of the Indian Constitution, gave to Dalits, backward classes and Adivasis, in the Indian Constitution. In doing so, the Congress, according to this claim, has gone against the Constitution, in which these reservations were not given to Muslims. By this act of redistribution, the Congress would illegally empower Muslims and, in so doing, disenfranchise Hindus. Mr. Modi has also tried to link his allegation against the Congress, in a muddled way, to its commitment for a caste census. While almost everything contained in this claim is inaccurate, some of its ingredients are, in fact, the critical ones to call out. Dr. Ambedkar did not think that a Dalit could be a Hindu. He refused to be Hindu himself. His drafted constitution gave reservation to Dalits and Adivasis only. The decision on the treatment of other economically backward groups, the majority of whom were low-caste Hindus, was relegated to committees by Jawaharlal Nehru, ostensibly for secular nationalist reasons. In the ongoing elections in India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his ruling BJP have once again gone down the route of demonizing hapless Indian Muslims. Is this simply a cynical and racist ploy to cultivate the Hindutva electoral vote? Or are there also more deep-rooted and systemic issues in India that its ruling elite are keen to cover up? Decades later, this led to the Mundal Commission recommendations on other backward classes, OBC. This happened under a Janata Dal government in 1990. The C of OBC stands for classes and not castes. OBC eligibility for education and employment benefits is based on the economic and social status of the recipient, and religion is not a criterion for inclusion or exclusion. But in the case of Hindus, it was indeed poor low-caste Hindus, whose lists were taken from pre-partition censuses and used for identification. So Muslims are not only a part of OBCs, but 60% of the Muslim population in 2022 were OBC. Muslims are of course 14% of India. The question of reservation for Dalits and Adivasis and other backward classes being redirected towards Muslims is technically impossible. Behind this fantastically misleading narrative of claims against the Congress's intent, there are deeper currents that need to be understood. It is these undercurrents that I shall examine in this essay. The first is about the process by which the Indian Muslim has been demonized. The second concerns the larger Indian economic growth and inequality context, in which this demonization plays a role. The third concerns empirically situating the Indian Muslims relative to other social groups so that the demonization is contextualized. Demonizing the Muslim. Growing inequality. Caste. The family secret. Data collection on Hindu castes in India stopped at the time of partition. The 1951 population census is devoid of any mention of real Hindu castes. After partition, the people of India were officially divided between religions. Two groups who were assigned a religious status by a presidential constitutional order in 1950 were given reservation benefits. The Dalits or untouchables were named scheduled castes, and the Adivasis or tribal people were named scheduled tribes. 3/4 of the Indian population today are already supported under some kind of reservation-based system. My estimates for 2022 suggest that the tribals in India are 9.8% of India's total population. The Dalits are 19.8% of India's population. Tribals and Dalits are not Hindu castes as such. They are excluded groups. And there is a history. As early as the 1920s, these groups became the target of conversions by political groups to increase headcounts. These groups are, at best, new converts to religions. The Muslim in Indian society. Let us return to the matter of propaganda and silence against the Muslim. The silence part has to do with the absence of publicly visible information on the Indian Muslim. It is important to cursorily see where the Muslims are placed in Indian society today. Unlike the Jewish population in pre-war Nazi Germany, who were in good numbers both middle class and educated, the Muslims of India are significantly a depressed minority of over 200 million. India is a society in which identity-based discrimination is not exclusive to Muslims, but is practiced against other groups as well. These are not just religious groups, but, as we saw, importantly, Dalits and the tribal people of India as well. The broad aim here is to show where the Muslims are placed. If this happens, darker times will descend, not only in India, but in many countries of the region. If it does not, a glint at the end of the tunnel will appear that will be a godsend, not only for Indians but for all South Asians.